Hello, everybody. This is Joe Bullis. It is January the 28th, and I am doing this recording for you to be able to watch after Dr. Lamb's task stream video. You will find this recording in the video library, which I'll show you in just a minute in my Blackboard internship shell. You will also be receiving a link to this video. So this evening, I wanted to go over a few things with you. Number one, wanted to do a review on ABSL Task 1 and Task 2, just to kind of make sure that you got a good understanding of what is involved with those two tasks with the ABSL. And then I'm going to talk to you about my Blackboard internship shell, and then briefly go over Task Stream. Now, as I told you before, and Dr. Church and I've told you before, we will review this several times. So it's not like you're going to hear anything once and never hear it again. You will be receiving more and more information on this and review on this until it becomes kind of second nature for you. We had planned a MELS 601 clinical coach Zoom session this evening as scheduled, but then when we found out that Dr. Lamb was going to be doing the task stream orientation this evening, I didn't want to overload you. And of course, we spoke about this during class last week. So we'll go ahead and get started. However, after you watch the video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email them to me and we will answer them through email or we'll address them in our next class session. First of all, what I usually go as my go-to document, what I usually rely on as my go-to document for the evidences that you'll be working with is the MELS scale handbook. And you, of course, did receive a copy of this. Each evidence that you'll be working with in the MELS program is located in the scale handbook. This information is also available to you in the syllabus. I believe it's also available to you in some other documents as well, but I always go to the scale handbook. And as you remember, in regards to the ABSL, which is what we're going to be going over first, just a quick review on ABSL Task 1 and Task 2. The ABSL is an action plan for student learning, so that's where the focus needs to be, on some type of intervention, if you will, action plan that will have a positive impact on a need or gap that you and your professional learning team has identified. Hopefully this is something that will be beneficial to your school. As I said before, Gardner Webb is all about making stuff relevant and practical to you in the experiences that they give you the opportunity to have. So hopefully this will be something that will be a benefit to your school and your administrative team at your school. And as we talked, the first thing you do in setting up a professional learning community is finding out what the research says about setting up a professional learning community. What are the basic steps to this? What are those things that are necessary for a collaborative team to have in developing a professional learning community so they can have a positive impact in their environment? And of course, the next task, once you have done that, the next task 2 is to pull that team together and look at the data. What does the data show you at your school? And that's a wide availability of data that you can use. You are encouraged to look at the total data picture of your school with your team and determine what a gap or need is at your school that may have need of a positive impact, that may need to be addressed. So I'm going to scroll on down in the scale handbook to ABSL Task 1. I'm always going to recommend that you read this anytime you start a new task or a new evidence as you progress through the program. Certainly in Task 1, I would recommend that you read the description. This gives you a brief overview of what the task is all about. Also, I'm going to recommend that you read the prompt. And in each prompt, sometimes there's one prompt for the task, sometimes there's two prompts for the task, could even be more. That gives you details as to what needs to be addressed in that task. And then I'm going to recommend that you always go back and look at the rubric, which is located at the end of each of the evidence. Now, it'll take you all the way through all the tasks of that evidence, and the rubric is found at the very end. That's the last thing in the scale handbook for each evidence. So you'll need to scroll down and get that. So you'll need to look at the rubric as well, especially after you have written the rubric, excuse me, after you have written the task and before you, even after your peer review, before you turn it in to Dr. Church, and certainly before you turn it in to me for feedback, as you compare your paper that you've written against what the rubric says, just to make sure that you've got every aspect that is going to be looked at and needs to be covered contained in your paper. So we'll move back up here to task one. And we've already we've already read through this several times. So the prompt was do PLC research. We talked about that. We said a minimum of 3 to 5 resources that you're going to be used. Remember, you'll need to include a school profile. You'll need to include a title page. You'll need to include a reference page and then an appendix of any artifacts that you may have. We'll go over this in a little more detail later on when we get into my Blackboard internship shell. But you do research on professional learning community, then you select your professional learning community team. We've gone through that and talked about that over the last couple of weeks. And then you hold your first PLC meeting. And remember, that first PLC meeting is to establish the purpose and the vision of your PLC team. That first meeting is a time to get norms and protocols established, introduce members to each other, talk about why this team is formed, talk about what your goal is for the team, what's the purpose of the team, and that's what you talk about here. You really don't want to get into any discussing in your narrative any reviewing of the data or determining what the gap is. You want to save that for task two. Task one team meeting is all about setting the purpose of the team and showing that you have the knowledge and experience through your research, what you've read, to have that first meeting and to form that team to get the foundation laid for professional learner community before you can go into the actual work of disaggregating the data. Please remember that all this is to be written in APA guideline. There was some, I believe it was last week, there was some Zoom sessions conducted by Gardner Webb Library on that should be very helpful to you on that as well. So that's task one. And then in task two, now you look at academic needs assessment. Now you review the data. You pull your team together and you look all the data available to you to identify a gap or a need that may be present at your school that you feel like it should be addressed and you feel like the team can have a positive impact upon. So in looking at the prompt for task two, first thing you need to do is make sure that you describe your data collection strategies. Where did you get your data? How did you collect it? What resources did you utilize at the school level, maybe even at the district level to pull in some data to identify the most pressing need? And throughout all of this is you always want to continue to show your leadership, how you led the group, how you facilitated the collection of the data, how you facilitated the discussion in the professional learning community of reviewing the data. Very important that you show your leadership throughout this whole process. You can videotape the meeting. You can take a picture of you leading the meeting. Always remember to be on the lookout for those artifacts because you will be using those later on as we progress through the program. And then you want to represent in prompt two for task two is you want to represent the data. You want to graphically represent the data that your team looked at. So that could be a chart, table, graph. Make sure you use APA. Make sure you appropriately identify a figure, a table, do it in sequential order, properly cite that according to APA as well. But you want to show that data that your team is looking at. So we'll talk about how you pull the data together. And then you want to show for the narrative and the reader the data that you collected. And then you want to discuss that data. What are some of the key points that your team pulled out and looking at the data? Excuse me. So you tell that story. When you went through the meeting, you reviewed the data. How did you facilitate that conversation? And if you show the reader the data. If you show them a chart or a table or a graph, introduce it according to ABA, but then tell the reader what's important about that visual. What do you want the reader to pull out from that visual? What did your team discover? What did you facilitate? But also make sure, don't anticipate that the reader can look at it and pull out the important information for themselves. You want to tell the reader what's important about what you're showing them, and that needs to be a part of the narrative as well. And then from those visuals, you want to support the analysis and tell what conclusions were drawn. So at the at the end of this is you want to do a summary paragraph. You may state it above in the narrative as to what is important about the data, what gaps were identified, but kind of pull it all together for the reader at the end of the narrative in maybe a summary paragraph of reinstating what needs or gaps were identified by the team. And that's task 1 and task 2. We will discuss task 3 and task 4 at our next class meeting, but I just wanted to review that and absolve task 1 and task 2 for you. Always remember to go to the rubric. What are some things that needed to be included in the rubric? And as you write the narrative, make these your subsections. There you'll probably receive information about that, but whatever's listed in the rubric, remember you want to at least be proficient. You can certainly go for accomplished. That's up to you. But these kind of give you an indicator of how your paper needs to be organized. There needs to be a section on research. There needs to be a section on PLC selection. And then there needs to be a section on PLC meeting. That's kind of the subheadings of your narrative. And that's given for basically each part of the rubric will tell you what sections or what subheadings need to be included in your narrative. So make sure that you have a section on the research. What does the research says? And now this needs to be some really good relevant research, not what I've had candidates try to cite things that they've seen on Facebook and maybe other forms of social media. That's not a recognized data house for literature review. So make sure that you come up with some good relevant resources, not what somebody may have said on social media. So this is a professional paper. You're doing professional research, so you want to make sure that educational leadership, even books that some of these authors, the DeForest, have written. Getting started, professional learning communities, things of that, whatever it takes. Think some recognized literature. Be very discerning about the resources that you use to research professional learning communities. And once again, that needs to be 3 to 5 sources. Make sure you talk about why you selected who you selected to be on your professional learning community. What roles do they have? What strengths do they have? Some other significant details. If maybe you and the principal work together, the principal say, well, I'd like for this person, or I'd like to be on your professional learning community. Well, that's fine. You can still discuss, even though you may not have had a sole hand in selecting these people, you still can discuss their roles and their strengths and other significant details when you talk about PLC selection. And then you talk about that first meeting. Once again, you want to be specific about that meeting is to set up your norms and protocols, talk about some of those essential first steps that's required in establishing the professional learning community, and also discuss the vision and the purpose of the PLC. And that's task 1. In task 2, that's what, as we told before, that's when you're going to talk about your academic needs assessment. Your one section needs to be about how you describe your data collection strategies and how did you prioritize the data? Which data did you look at? Which ones did your team zero in on to find that most pressing academic need? So you want to talk about that as well. You also, throughout that narrative, make sure that you give visuals on the data that you're discussing. Make sure you talk about the conclusions that your team drew from each of the visuals. And then you want to talk about how that meeting led to determining what that pressing academic need is. So you're going to provide evidence that you led. That's what I talked to you about before, is how did you lead that? How did you facilitate that? How did you lead the team through the through the data disaggregation. If you've done that before, then it's really just telling what happened. Just tell the story as we told you before. And that's task one and task two, and that's what, of course, you're working on now. So, all right, Joe, I've got my task one ready. It's gone through the peer review process. Followed Dr. Church's directions on getting that all ready, and I've got task one. And now Dr. Church says to me, send this to Dr. Bullis. So what do I do at that point? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through an initial overview of what. Now that you're doing all this, you're doing all this writing, and you're getting these documents ready. What do you do with them once they are ready to be sent to Dr. Bullis? How do we go through that process? I'm going to give you a brief overview of this, of the process of submitting your task one to getting it to the point to where it is ready to be placed on the shelf, if you will, let me say that, until you need it for a final evaluation. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of all that in just a moment. Please remember that we will go over this again and again as we progress through this semester. This is just a brief overview just to kind of get you acclimated and make you aware of the process. So I am going to stop sharing the Scale Handbook, and I am now going to go into Blackboard. Okay, so what you should be seeing at this point in time, if I pull it up, is Gardner-Webb University Blackboard. I'm going to double check and make sure, excuse me, I just clicked on the wrong thing there, but just wanted to double check and make sure that was actually what was being shared. So if while you're reviewing this recording, if anything that I have referenced or spoke to as being on the screen and it's not on the screen, please email me and let me know, and I will redo the recording. I just wanted to make sure that that is available and you're seeing what I'm talking about. So right now you should be looking at Gardner-Webb University Blackboard. And mine's going to look a little bit different than yours, obviously, because I'm looking from a course instructor, clinical internship. Mine, that view is going to be different than your view. But when you pull up your Gardner-Webb Blackboard, if not, I just received an email from Dr. Lamb earlier this week that you have been assigned my Blackboard shell. So you should be seeing that. If not, it should go through the system, and it should pop up on your screen no later than tomorrow. This is now Thursday, January 28th. If you don't see it by tomorrow, Friday, January the 29th by 5 p.m., please email me and let me know. But if you pull up all the courses available to you, now what you see on mine is all the different courses, the cohorts that I'm clinical coach for, that I'm an internship supervisor for. You'll see 601, 602, 605. Well, you just need to zero in on the 601 with Dr. Church. That's your course. Of course, you should see that. That's how you access Dr. Church's Blackboard shell. You may see two with my name on it. You may see this one that says 2020 MELS S696828 internship. That is not the one that you click on. For me, for my internship shell, you want to look for this, the one that says MELS Clinical Internship Bullis. It has my name in the main title. That's the one that you want to click on, because in the MELS program, you're really basically going to have three depositories that you upload information to or documents to. The first one is, of course, Dr. Church's course shell. Dr. Church is your course instructor. His Blackboard shell is called this is how I refer to it. His Blackboard shell is called your course shell. Excuse me. Dr. Church is your course instructor. His Blackboard shell is your course shell. The second depository for you as far as uploading information, and those are all things related to Dr. Church's, his particular assignments, the discussion board, the content information that he goes over with you. The second depository for you in Blackboard is the internship shell. That's what I usually refer to it in my Blackboard internship shell, or sometimes I may say clinical shell. But those are the two sections that you are going to upload information to. So right now we're going to open up my internship shell. Remember, you have your course instructor and your course shell with Dr. Church. You have your internship and your internship shell in Blackboard with me. We'll talk about the third depository here in just a minute, which of course is TaskStream. So we're going to open up my internship shell. My internship shell looks very similar to Dr. Church's course shell, but there are some differences. There's not like a weekly assignment, weekly information for you. Basically, the only thing that you're going to be sending me here in the course shell is your evidences and the tasks. So for this semester, the only thing you're going to be uploading here is your APSL task, task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, and task 5. Right now, we're just going to focus on APSL task 1. But let's look. You won't see all of these listed because some of these are hidden from your view. The ones that has the little square with the line stripe through it, those you won't be seeing on your view. But you will see content. Under content, I actually have some information for you on PLC norms, some information on DE4 and PLC, just an example of some of the research that you want to maybe look at. These are just samples for you, just to kind of get an idea of what we're looking for as far as the research goes. We will come back to this document later on. Artifacts, competency folio, evidence task crosswalk. We'll come back to that later on, so don't really worry about that right now. You can certainly look through that if you want to, but I'd rather go over that with you when you kind of get a little more acclimated in TaskStream. And we're kind of doing a live Zoom session so I can answer questions. So you can look through this if you want to, certainly, but we'll save that for later on and go over that later on. Under content, you also internship shell directions. This is information on how to utilize the sections of the internship shell. You can read through that. Also, the information on how to forward your Gardner Webb email, which I think Dr. Church has already provided for you. But we'll go over all this, everything that I'm talking to you about in this session and in future sessions is basically, written down for you here. Now, this is one thing that I do want you to pay attention to right now. In templates and resources, I have information if you are in APA 7th edition. And of course, that does say for spring 2020, that's when it started. But you would pay attention to this because that's when the new 7th edition started. It was in spring 2020. So you will be under the 7th edition for my 603 through 605 students. They would pay attention down here, just some resources for you for APA. And I know Dr. Church has already shared that with you. There's also some resources about effective peer review and tips. I think that's also in Dr. Church's course shell. Some information on annotated bibliography to a literature review. That's some good information. What I want you to pay attention to here is the APSL final evidence narrative template and the APSL helpful hints revised March 6, 2020. Dr. Church, I think, has also provided this to you. But this is two good go-to documents to help guide you as you begin to write your narrative. If you'll pull it up, you'll notice that let's make sure that I'm sharing this. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to make sure that you are seeing this template. Okay, so you probably have already looked at this, but this is a guide for what your paper how your paper needs to be structured. Your title page, And then there are also some directions is where you add your narrative. What the red text is just for a reminder. Everything in black stays. That just kind of gives you a direction. Please remove the highlight and the red and all of that when you turn your paper in for review. It doesn't need to look like you just plugged everything into this template. You need to make this your own. So you certainly want to change it to where it's a professional document that you created, not where you just copied and pasted into an existing template. So you need to have your school profile. Where is that placed in the document? And then when do you put your research in? This also gives you the subheadings. This is kind of what it needs to look like for your document. So once again, this is a template for you to use and how to structure your paper as well. And it goes beyond, task one and task two. So what you want to do is you want to take your task one. It will need to have the title page, the school profile, and don't leave the rest of this. Just remove it after you get to the point where you have included everything for task one. Make a separate copy, make a separate document, and then just set it aside. So you don't want to leave the template. Like I said, don't just plug things in the template and send it to me. Make it look like the document that you created, that is yours, very professional when you send it to me for review. So, but this is a very valuable tool for you to use and how your APSA will be structured as you progress through this semester. So I'm going to remove that and open up share again to Blackboard. So now you should be looking at Blackboard. We had the APSL final evidence template. There's also a good document here that's contained in templates and resources on helpful hints in writing your APSL. So utilize that as you move forward in writing each of the tasks. Okay, my clinical coach Zoom meeting schedule is also located here. So if you need the link to the recording for that particular week, or want to know what week we are meeting, you can find it here. Remember, I have several cohorts. So when I pull up my schedule, it's color coded. And let me share that. You should be looking at my schedule right now. Anything dealing with 601 is in yellow. Anything dealing with 602 is in orange. And of course, 605 is in green. So you can look through each week and say, okay, when is Dr. Bullis meeting? Is he meeting with us? Is 601 included in there? If it is, where's the link to the meeting? So after today, our next meeting will be February the 11th. We will go over tasks 3 and 4. I will review everything that I'm reviewing right now, answer any questions you have, and here is the link for the meeting. So that's located in the Blackboard internship shell. So let me go back and share Blackboard. Okay, so we've gone over content, we've gone over shell directions, we've gone over templates and resources, we've talked about where you can find my meeting schedule. Next is the video library. Anytime I do a recording for your cohort, once the recording is done, I will usually send you a link by email, but then I will also put it here in the video library for you to go back and review. You also see a quick 2-minute video about setting up your competency folio, which is something you'll hear about tonight. We will go over that again, but it will be once you get to the point where you have to set up a competency folio. Here is a good little 2-minute video that Dr. Lamb did that gives you directions on how to do that. But like I said, we will go over that again. The main thing I wanted you to remember right now is where the video library is located in my internship shell and where you will find videos for MELS 601. So once I get finished with this video, send you the recording link, I will tell you in the email that it can also be found in the video library, and this is where you'll find a recording of this video. All right, next section is handbooks. Here you will find the scale handbook that I always refer to, then also the site supervisor handbook and the clinical internship handbook is located here. So when you get there and you need to know where your handbooks are at, you can find them here in my internship course shell. All right, that's a brief overview of the clinical Blackboard, my internship shell, and Blackboard. Now let's get back to answer our essential question, and is once I have finished my task one of the APSL, I've gone through the peer review process. I've let Dr. Church know that it is ready to move forward, and he says, okay, send it to Dr. Bullis. How do I do that? Well, to answer that question is you get into Blackboard and you click on my clinical coach internship shell, the one that we're in right now. You click on that in Blackboard and you click on APSL task for review. Now I want to draw your attention before we go into that. There's basically two sections here. After all the information, after all the resources, you'll see two sections. One that has, the top section has each of the evidences to the whole program listed. Of course, in 601, we're concerned with the APSL. And then there's a line. And then below that line, it's all the evidences listed again. And of course, for 601, here's the APSL. But there's a distinction between these two groups here. The first group says APSL task for review. The second group says APSL evaluation Dropbox. The first group is where we do our editing. This is the editing section. This is where you will send me your task one the very first time. I will read it. I will provide you feedback, and then you will revise it based on feedback and send it back to me in this section. That's what we mean by review. We're reviewing it, we're editing it, we're making it right. We're not collecting grades on it at this point in time. This is just the section that we use to refine your task one. So this is where you upload it to begin with. When Dr. Church says, okay, task one is ready to go to Dr. Bullis, you get into the clinical coach internship shell. You click on APSL task for review. You click on APSL task clinical coach review and you upload it there. It's got a place for you to, it's a discussion board is what it is. So it's got a place for you to make a comment if there's something you want me to let me know about or tell me about. Then you will put it in the comment section and then you will upload from your computer the task one that you want me to review. I will do two or three, I will do it a couple of different ways. First of all, I will pull up the document that you've attached and I will read through it. It may be that it's in great shape. After being through your peer review and after getting feedback from Dr. Church, you may be in great shape. I may read it and then in the comment section, I may say, hey, this is good. You're good to go. You don't know, I have no suggestions for improvement. All right, and I'll tell you what to do with it if that happens in just a moment. But I may tell you that. I may say, hey, I read through this. You're right on the mark with the rubric. You got everything you need. It is good to go. But however, if not, and there are a few revisions that need to be made that I feel will put it into the proficient or accomplished category, is within the Microsoft Word document. And I do want these sent to me in Microsoft Word. Do not send them to me as a PDF or any other version. I want them in a Microsoft Word version. Because what I'll do is I go through the document and I give comments. If you'll see at the top of Microsoft Word document, you can hit review, and under review, you can leave comments in the margin of the paper. And I find that's very helpful because I can click on a specific point in your paper that I want to give you feedback on, and then I'll type it in the comment section, and you know exactly what I'm talking about and what I'm referring to. at that point in the paper that I think needs to be revised. So that's why I want you to send these to me in Microsoft Word, because what I'll do is if it does need to be revised, I'll go through it in Microsoft Word. I'll put comments and give you feedback within the document, save it as a separate document, and then I will reply to you within this discussion board, and I will attach the document that I've made comments in. So that way you can pull it up and you can see where I've made it, and any suggestions or revisions. At that point in time, you can go back into your paper and make those revisions. Once you do any revisions that I've suggested, then you are here in the clinical coach review task 1, you send it back to me. You send the revised version back to me. So if we've edited anything, if we revised it in any way, once you got it in good shape, you turn it back into me here in clinical coach review. Now, another way is if I feel like there's just a few general revisions that need to be made, I may even just say within the comment section of my reply discussion board, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then let it go with that. So there's 3 different ways. It's either going to come back to you as, hey, this is great, you don't need to make any changes. Or number 2, hey, I've attached a document with some specific feedback. You need to open that document up and make some changes. Or the third is, hey, there's just a few general things you need to work on. Here they are. And then you open your paper up. I may not even attach it at that point in time. It's just some general comments. And then you can make changes based on those general comments in the comment section and revise your paper. But once you have revised it, once you have acted on the feedback that I've given you, then you send it back to me here. I will look at it again. And if I feel like it's in good shape, I will say, okay, ready. This is going to be ready for the evaluation Dropbox. This is where I collect your grade. I don't want to collect your grade yet, because if I collect your grade now, that's not really beneficial to you and giving you a grade during the revision process, during the review process. So that's why I handle it all here in this section. I don't want to collect your grade because I still have to collect a grade on task 1 and any other task you turn into me, but I want to do that after it is in shape to move forward. So once in the review process, once we get the paper in good shape, you will see ready for evaluation Dropbox. At that point in time, you take that version of your task, Absol Task 1, and you come down here and you click Absol Evaluation Dropbox. And this, if you'll notice, there's a difference here. This is just a discussion board. You can tell by the icon here. No grades are going to be collected, but once you put it into the Dropbox, this is an assignment. And that's when I collect a grade, and you upload your final version, the final draft of task 1. And that's when I collect the grade. And you'll get a grade of 100 at that point, because like I told you, I'm not going to have you to submit it for grading until it is at that point. And once you get the grade on Absol Task 1, then you just save that final draft because you'll be using it later, and you move on to task 2. And the process begins all over again for the next task. You would get your task 2 ready. You would post it here for revision, for review. We'll revise it, we'll edit it, we'll proof it, we'll get it in good shape. Once it's in good shape here in this section, then I will tell you to take it to the evaluation Dropbox for grading. You click down here, and that's where you upload task 2, so on and so forth until you progress through all of the tasks for this program. We will talk about what you do and how you get to the very end as we move forward. This is just an orientation, as I said before. So just remember, there's 2 sections here. There's Absol Task for Review, Absol Evaluation Dropbox. Absol Task for Review is where we revise, we proof, we edit, we get your paper in good shape, no grades. Absol Evaluation Dropbox is where you submit your final version for final draft for grading. So make sure right now you don't even need to be close to the evaluation Dropbox because you don't have anything ready to be graded. Just remember, it's all for review. We're going to review it before we grade it. And those are the two sections. All right, so that is an overview of your Blackboard internship shell. I will go over this again, but this is how you submit Absol Task 1 to me. You should be able to see the clinical internship shell in your Blackboard now. As I said, if it's not available to you by Friday at 5 p.m., email me and let me know on Monday. It may even show up on the weekend because I know they're still in the process of assigning this course to you. Just like Canvas, if you work with Canvas, that Canvas course has to be assigned to those students. This clinical coach's internship shell has to be assigned to you, and they are working on that, and it may have already happened, but it may take a few days for it to come through. So those are the two areas in Blackboard that you work with. You work with Dr. Church's course shell, and you work with my internship shell. Now, the other thing that we're going to go over briefly is TaskStream, and that's what you're going to get information on tonight. Depends on when you see this recording. You may have already been through the TaskStream orientation with Dr. Lamb, and I think Dr. Stebbin may be doing that too. Or if I send this out beforehand, which I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to, you may watch this first. But anyway, the other depository in this program that you're going to put information in is called TaskStream. Okay, make sure that I'm sharing that. Okay, very good. This is the login. You'll receive information on TaskStream on how to log in information. The accounts will be set up for you and everything. If you haven't already gotten that information, if you haven't gotten it yet, don't worry. It's going to be a long time in terms of the semester before you have to put things in the TaskStream. All right, you're going to be finished with the Absol, all of the tasks of the Absol before you really put anything in TaskStream. So that's several weeks out right now. So like I said, just kind of sit back and listen, be aware of it. The main thing that you want to focus in on now is how to submit your weekly assignments for your course instructor in the course shell, and how to submit, once you get your Absol task ready, how to submit them to me in the internship shell. That's the main thing that you want to focus on right now. TaskStream is later on down the road. Great thing about TaskStream is you're not going to create anything new basically for TaskStream. It's just another place for you to put the information that the documents that you've already created and the artifacts that you already created. So know that it's just another place to put it. As far as the Blackboard and the internship shell and the course shell, as I told you, I think it was last week, that's where you satisfy the requirements of the university to get your master's degree, to graduate from this program. TaskStream is the platform that is used to provide information to DPI so you can get your license, so you can be licensed as a school administrator. So that's the difference. So in TaskStream, this is probably some of the things they're going to go over with you in TaskStream. Mine's going to look different than yours, once again. But when you go into TaskStream, you're going to basically see two areas that you're going to be working with in TaskStream. One is called the direct response folio, and it is going to look like this. Right, you're going to see a screen, and on the screen, you're going to see all the courses that you're going to be working with in the MELS program. MELS 601, 602, 603, 605, and there's some additional headings there that we'll talk about much later on. So right now, you just focus in on 601. So you're thinking, okay, if I get the Absol completed and I get all the tasks done, what do I do with the Absol for it to be evaluated for licensure? This is where you put it for licensure evaluation. The Absol would go here. You don't do this. You don't put anything in the task stream until I tell you to do so, and Dr. Church tells you to do so, because it's not ready yet, and it won't be ready for a while. You've got to complete all the tasks, and we've got to get all the APSL tasks completed before you're able to take that information and put it here. So you really don't need to do anything in task stream until we tell you to. You may hear something different. Dr. Lambs and Dr. Stedman's task stream orientation tonight. I don't think that you will, but don't worry about that. Just ask us the questions if there's something contradictory than what I'm telling you, than what you hear in the task stream orientation. But anyway, this is called, you need to get this in kind of in your mind. This is called the DRF, and that stands for the direct response folio, the DRF. This is where you upload your APSL. Towards the end of the semester, you also complete a competency analysis and a school ed disposition. These are basically just some self-assessments. I'll get into that more detail of what that is. Nothing you need to worry about now, nothing you need to do anything with now. You don't even need to do anything with this right now. As far as the MELS 601 app. So I'm just telling you this just to kind of make you aware of it, because you're going to hear it in the orientation. Usually don't even go over task stream until maybe the third or fourth or even fifth week, even maybe halfway through the semester. A lot of times don't even talk about task stream in detail, but I didn't want you to go into that orientation and then come out panicking. We will deal with this later. We will address it when the time comes later. Another thing you want to be doing is you're going to set up your own website through here. And that's called a competency folio. And you can access that up here in folio and web pages. Don't pay attention to that. That's something I was working on for another class. But when you click on the banner up here, folio and web pages, you won't see this, but at some point in time, you're going to create your own website. This is where you do it. I'll give you directions on how to do that. But it's going to look like this, basically like this, once you get it all set up. Remember, we were talking to you about you need to collect artifacts, pictures of you leading the meeting, video clips of you facilitating the PLC, agendas, screenshots of the email between you and the principal getting permission to establish a professional learning community. Those artifacts we talked about, maybe you would put them in the appendix at the end of your paper in your APSL task. Well, this is where once you get the APSL completely done, tasks 1 through 5, not before then, but once you get the APSL completely done, tasks 1 through 5, I remember Dr. Church said if you embed those artifacts within the paper, make sure you got them in a separate document that you can copy and paste them out of, because you're going to take those artifacts and there you're going to drop them in here, and you're going to each artifact is going to correlate to a leadership competency. There's 21 leadership competencies that start with communication and go all the way down to visionary, I believe. Yeah, the visionary. And these are, if you are a competent leader, then you're going to have these skills. You're going to be able to be sensitive. You're going to be results oriented. You're going to be responsive to your stakeholders. You're going to have personal ethics and values. You're going to have an ability to organize. You're going to have good judgment. You're going to have a perception on the global perception. You're going to be able to delegate. You're going to be able to communicate. This is all established by those North Carolina School Executive Standards. This is what this is based on. And this is proven to DPI that you have these competencies of leadership. How do you prove that? Well, you could tell them what you did in the narrative, and that's fine. You could tell them all about being a great leader, but how do you show that? You show that through artifacts. I always give the example of being an artist or being a great whittler. I can tell you that I can whittle wooden duck decoys. I can paint the most beautiful picture you've ever seen. But until you see evidence of that, an artifact that I created, something that I produced, what I tell you I can do and what I tell you I did doesn't mean anything. You need to see the proof. And the proof is in the artifact. And you just drop those artifacts in here as to each competency that they correlate. We will go over this over and over and over again. We will talk about all this over and over again, but that's basically all that TaskStream is. TaskStream is a place for you to upload your APSL once it's completed. Once you have completely revised and finalized the final proof of your APSL. This is where you upload it to be considered for license. There's a couple of self-assessments that you do here. We'll go over that later on. You don't complete those till the end of the semester. And this is where you create your own web page. You create your own web page to house your artifacts, just your artifacts that you've created in doing the APSL. And that's basically all that TaskStream is. So what have we talked about this evening? We've talked about a review of APSL Task 1, doing your PLC research, organizing your PLC, having that first meeting and determining the purpose of the PLC. We talked about APSL 2, collecting your data, getting your team together, and you leading them on the data analysis to determine the most pressing academic need in your school. And we talked about, okay, once you get task 1 written, where do you submit that? Well, we talked about Blackboard. In Blackboard, there's 2 depositories. There is one, there's Dr. Church's course shell, and there's Dr. Bullis's internship shell. And once you get APSL Task 1 ready for review, we talked about putting it into my course shell. We talked about the 2 sections in my course shell. We also talked about resources available to you that's very similar, not exactly what you see in Dr. Church's course shell. Talked about where to put, you'll find access to the video recordings. Talked about the handbooks, but we talked about these 2 main sections. We talked about APSL Task for Review, and we talked about APSL Evaluation Dropbox. We talked about where the Task for Review section is where we finalize, revise, get the editing done on your paper before grading. Once the final draft is ready, we talked about putting it in the Dropbox for grading. And that's where you get your grade on APSL Task 1 from me. And then we talked about TaskStream. TaskStream is the 3rd depository of all this information. If you realize you're not really creating anything new for TaskStream, you're just taking the stuff that you've already created and putting it in a different place for a different reason. You put information in the Blackboard that satisfies the requirements of the university so you can get your diploma. Put that same information in the TaskStream that satisfies the requirements of North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for you to get licensure. So it's just a new place to put the information. You just have to present it in a different way. So we will go over all this again. I hope this video, this recording has been beneficial to you. I know it's a long one, but it's something that it's recorded so you can listen to it in increments. You can watch it and watch it and watch it over again. But this is kind of pulling in APSL Task 1 and Task 2 so you can kind of start finishing that up for review. So you can send it to me in the course shell and then letting you know the different sections that you're going to be working in. The course shell with Dr. Church, the internship shell with me, which are both in Blackboard, and TaskStream. If you have any questions whatsoever, please email to them and we will go over this. We will go over it all again when we meet. I believe it's February the 11th is what I said. But until then, reach out to me through email if you have any questions. If you want to do a Zoom meeting, an individual Zoom meeting or a small group Zoom meeting, just let me know. I hope you all have a great evening. I hope and pray that you and your family stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much for your attention. I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Bye-bye.